the crisp Colorado air bit at my cheeks. A familiar sting I'd come to love during our annual ski trip. My friends, Sarah and Mike, were somewhere ahead of me, their laughter echoing faintly on the wind. Just one last run, I'd yelled, peeling off from the main trail onto what looked like a pristine, untouched stretch of powder. That was my first mistake. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples, but down here, nestled between the towering pines, a deep, premature twilight was already setting in. The silence was the first thing that got to me. Not the peaceful quiet of a snowy forest, but a heavy, listening silence, the kind that makes the hairs on your arms stand up. I checked my phone. No signal. Of course, a prickle of unease started to crawl up my spine. The slope had flattened out, and I was pushing myself along with my poles, the rhythmic crunch of snow the only sound, or so I thought. Then I heard it, a faint snap, like a dry twig breaking under a heavy weight. It came from the dense woods to my right. I froze, straining my ears. Probably just a deer. Premeditated myself, my heart thumping a nervous rhythm against my ribs. I started moving again, a little faster this time, but then came another sound, closer now. A scraping, dragging noise. It was unnatural, rhythmic, but wrong. Like something heavy and uneven being pulled across the frozen ground. I stopped again, peering into the deepening gloom between the trees. The wind had died completely. It was so still I could hear my own ragged breathing clouding in the air before me. That's when I saw it. At first, it was just a shape, a flicker of movement in the periphery. It was tall, impossibly tall and gaunt, its form a skeletal silhouette against the darkening snow. It moved with a lurching, disjointed gait that was both horrifyingly fast and sickeningly slow. My blood ran cold. This wasn't an animal. The rational part of my brain screamed at me to move, to ski, to get away. But my legs were locked, frozen by a primal fear I had never known. The figure stepped partially out from behind a thick pine, and the last rays of sunlight caught it. Its skin was the color of old bone, stretched taut over a frame that looked like it hadn't seen a meal in a century. Its limbs were too long, bent at angles that defied anatomy. And then it lifted its head. My breath hitched in my throat. A choked sob. Perched atop its narrow, skull-like head was a rack of gnarled, dark horns, like the dead branches of a lightning-struck tree. They weren't like deer or elk antlers. They were twisted, sharp, and malevolent. Its face was a sunken nightmare. Deep-set sockets held eyes that seemed to burn with a cold, ancient hunger. It had no lips, just a hugged, lipless tear that stretched too wide, revealing rows of yellowed, pointed teeth. It wasn't looking at me. Not yet. It was sniffing the air, its head tilting from side to side in a jerky, bird-like motion. The scraping sound started again as it took another step, one of its long, claw-like feet dragging through the snow. I realized with a jolt of pure terror that it was hunting. It was following a scent. My scent. I had to move. The thought finally broke through the paralysis. I dug my poles into the snow, pushing with all my might, my skis gliding sluggishly at first. The movement caught its attention. Its head snapped in my direction. Those black, hollow eyes locking onto mine. A sound tore from its throat. A low, guttural growl that vibrated through the snow and up into my bones. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated malice. It started to move towards me, not running, but lurching forward with that same unnatural, disjointed speed. It was closing the distance far too quickly. Panic gave me a surge of adrenaline. I pushed harder, my lungs burning, my muscles screaming. The slope started to incline downwards again, and I gained a little speed. I didn't dare look back. I could hear it behind me, the scrape and crunch of its pursuit a horrifying drumbeat, counting down my final seconds. The trees were a blur. I dodged and weaved, praying I wouldn't hit a hidden rock or a tree. Well, I could feel its presence right behind me, a cold wave of dread washing over me. I risked a glance over my shoulder. It was Tere just yards away, one long, spindly arm reaching out for me. its fingers ending in what looked like dirty, yellowed talons. Its mouth was open in a silent scream, the cavern of its maw a black hole of hunger. I screamed, a raw, desperate sound swallowed by the vast wilderness. I put my head down and focused on nothing but survival. The terrain was getting rougher, and I nearly lost my balance several times. I could hear its guttural breaths now, a wet, rasping sound that was impossibly close. Then, up ahead, I saw a faint glow. Lights. The main resort, hope, fierce and desperate, surged through me. I poured every last ounce of energy I had into one final push. The forest thinned, and I burst out of the tree line onto the edge of a groomed, brightly lit run. I didn't stop. I skied frantically, towards the chairlift station, towards the sounds of music and people. I finally collapsed in a heap near the bottom lift. My skis tangled beneath me, gasping for air, my body shaking uncontrollably. A ski patrol officer rushed over. "Hey, you okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't speak. I just pointed back towards the dark, silent wall of trees I had just escaped. My friends, Sarah and Mike, found me there moments later, their faces a mixture of relief and concern. "Carl, we were so worried. Where have you been?" I tried to tell them. I tried to explain the skeletal figure, the impossible speed, the crown of twisted horns. They exchanged worried glances. "You must have taken a fall. Hit your head," Mike said gently. "There's nothing out there but trees and snow, buddy." They helped me up, and we went back to the lodge. I spent the rest of the night wrapped in a blanket, staring into the fire. The image of those burning, hungry eyes seared into my mind. They think I imagined it. They think I was disoriented and scared, but I know what I saw. I know that for a few terrifying minutes, I was on the wrong side of the slope. I was in its territory, and I know that it's still out there, in the cold, silent darkness, dragging its feet through the snow, its horned head tilted to the sky, sniffing the air, and waiting. I will never ski alone in the twilight again. Some legends are real, and I was lucky to escape with just a story. Follow for more true encounters. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We've got some incredible stories lined up for you today that I seriously can't wait to share. But before we dive into all that, I'm super curious about something. Where in the world are you watching this from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And just for fun, let me know what time it is for you. It's always so amazing to see how our community spans across so many different time zones. It really feels like we're all connected, no matter where we are. All right, let's get into it. The Appalachian Trail had always been a dream of mine, a pilgrimage of sorts. After weeks of rugged terrain and breathtaking vistas, I found a small, rustic hostel tucked away in a valley, a welcome sight for my weary legs. The place was cozy, filled with fellow hikers, sharing stories and a warm meal. I was assigned a top bunk in a room with 3 other people. The guy in the bunk below me, a quiet, lanky fellow named Ethan, had been there for a couple of days, nursing a sprained ankle. He seemed nice enough, though he kept to himself, mostly just reading a tattered paperback. The other 2 were a cheerful couple from Germany who were already asleep when I climbed into my bunk. I was exhausted, the kind of deep, bone-weary tired you only get from days on the trail. As I drifted off, I heard a soft voice from the bunk below. "Good night, honey. Sleep well." I froze. My entire body went rigid. It was my mom's voice. Not just similar to it, but exactly her voice, the same gentle cadence, the same loving tone she'd used to tuck me in every night as a kid. But my mom was over 1,000 miles away, sound asleep in her own bed. My heart started hammering against my ribs. It had to be a dream, I told myself. I was just overtired, my mind playing tricks on me. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to force myself to sleep, to escape the chilling echo of that voice. But sleep wouldn't come. Every creak of the old wooden hostel, every rustle of leaves outside the window, sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I lay there for what felt like hours, listening to the steady breathing of the German couple and the unnervingly silent bunk below me. Eventually, I must have drifted into a light, uneasy sleep, because I was startled awake by a soft scratching sound. It was coming from below. Scratch, scratch, pause, scratch, scratch, pause. It sounded like fingernails dragging slowly across the wooden bed frame. My blood ran cold. I strained my ears, trying to place the sound. Was it his own? Was he just restless because of his ankle? I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but a primal fear had taken root in my gut. The scratching stopped, and a moment later, I heard a low, guttural whisper. It was too muffled to make out the words. A string of harsh, unfamiliar sounds that made the hair on my arm stand up. It definitely wasn't English. It wasn't German either. It sounded ancient, something that didn't belong in the modern world. My breath caught in my throat. I had to see what was going on. Slowly, inch by agonizing inch, I leaned over the edge of my bunk, peering down into the darkness below. The room was bathed in the faint moonlight filtering through the window, casting long, distorted shadows. Ethan's bunk was empty. The sheets were thrown back, but he was gone. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure it would wake the entire room. Where could he have gone? The bathroom. Maybe he stepped outside for some air. But then, I saw it. The window on the far side of the room, the one that was supposed to be latched shut, was wide open. A cold night breeze was drifting in, making the thin curtains dance like ghostly figures. A wave of pure terror washed over me. He hadn't used the door. I pulled back into my bunk, my mind racing. Nothing made sense. The voice, the scratching, the open window. It was all wrong. I remembered the old tales I'd read about the Appalachian Mountains. Whispers of strange creatures that roamed the forests. Beings that could mimic human voices. Skinwalkers. I'd always dismissed them as campfire stories. Folklore meant to scare tourists. But lying there, in the dead of night, with an empty bunk below me, and my mother's voice still echoing in my mind, the stories felt horrifyingly real. I didn't dare move. I just lay there, wrapped in my sleeping bag like a cocoon, pretending to be asleep, every muscle tensed. I listened for any sound of his return, my ears straining against the silence. Or Basit. The first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, painting the room in shades of gray. Just as I started to think maybe I had imagined it all, a dark shape appeared at the open window. It was impossibly tall and thin, a contorted silhouette against the pre-dawn light. It moved with a fluid, au natural grace, folding itself through the window frame with a series of quiet, sickening cracks, like bones being reset. It wasn't human. It was too long, too gaunt, its limbs moving at angles that were just wrong. It landed silently on the floor and then, with a final, horrifying shudder, it seemed to contract. The long limbs shortened, the gaunt frame filled out, and in the dim light, the shape resolved itself into the familiar form of Ethan. He quietly crossed the room and slipped back into his bunk as if he'd never left. I didn't breathe. Primera, Cudient. I had just watched something monstrous transform into the man sleeping a few feet below me. The quiet, unassuming hiker with the sprained ankle. Was the ankle even real? Or was it just part of the disguise? The sun was rising now, and the birds began to sing their morning chorus, a cheerful sound that felt completely alien to the horror I had just witnessed. Soon, the German couple started to stir. I heard Ethan move below me, a soft groan as if he was just waking up. "Morning?" he said, his voice completely normal. Friendly, even I couldn't answer. I just lay there, paralyzed with fear. I had to get out. I had to get away from him, from this place. Carefully, I climbed down from my bunk, avoiding eye contact with Ethan. I grabbed my pack, shoving my gear inside with trembling hands. "Leaving so soon?" he asked, his voice casual. I could feel his eyes on me. He just nodded, mumbling something about getting an early start. "All right," he said. "Be safe out there." He smiled, a perfectly normal, friendly smile. But his eyes, there was something in his eyes. A flicker of ancient, knowing intelligence that wasn't human. As I turned to leave, he spoke again, his voice dropping to that same soft whisper from the night before. "Say hi to your mom for me." I didn't look back. I practically ran out of the hostel and didn't stop until the sun was high in the sky. I never finished the trail. Some trails aren't meant to be finished. I went home, and every time my mom says goodnight, a part of me still freezes, waiting for the wrong voice to answer back from the darkness. Thanks for listening, and please, be careful who you share a room with. Follow for more stories. The drive back from the Rocky Mountains was supposed to be the perfect end to a perfect trip. Me, Sarah, and Mark, windows down, music blaring, reliving every hike and every breathtaking view. But the Rockies have a mind of their own. 1 minute, it was clear skies. The next, the heavens opened up. Rain wasn't just falling, it was a solid wall of water. The wind howled like a tortured animal, shaking our little sedan like a toy. Driving was impossible. We were completely blind. "I can't see a thing," Mark yelled over the storm's fury, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "We have to pull over." Through the deluge, Sarah spotted a faint, flickering light, a sign for a rest stop, or what was left of one. It was an old, forgotten parking lot, miles from any town. The sign was so faded, the letters were just ghosts of words. It was eerie, but it was our only option. Mark carefully navigated the car into a parking space facing a dense, dark wall of pine trees. He killed the engine, and the world went silent, save for the relentless drumming of rain on the roof and the moaning of the wind. "Well, this is cozy," Sarah said, trying to lighten the mood, but her voice trembled. The place felt wrong. An ancient stillness hung in the air, a heavy silence that the storm couldn't quite pierce. It felt like we'd driven into a pocket of the world that time had forgotten, and that was watching us. We sat there just staring out into the blackness, the wipers smearing the rain across the windshield. The forest was an impenetrable curtain of shadow, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was staring back. About an hour passed. The storm raged on. We were scrolling on our phones, trying to ignore the oppressive atmosphere, when Mark suddenly gasped, "Did you guys see that?" "See what?" I asked, my heart skipping a beat. "I don't know. Something moved. Out there, by the trees." He pointed into the darkness. I strained my eyes but saw nothing but swaying branches and sheets of rain. "Probably just a deer, Mark." "Don't spook us," Sarah said, but she pulled her jacket tighter around herself. We fell back into an uneasy silence, but now we were all watching the tree line. Every flicker of lightning that illuminated the forest felt like a threat, revealing a world of twisted, skeletal trees. Then we heard it, a sound that cut through the roar of the storm. It was a faint, high-pitched whistle. It sounded almost human, like someone whistling a strange, disjointed tune. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "What is that?" Sarah whispered, her face pale. "It's just the wind," I said, my own voice lacking conviction. "It's playing tricks on us." But the whistling grew louder, more defined. It was a melody, but a sick one, full of wrong notes and jarring pauses. It was a tune of absolute madness. It scraped at the inside of your skull, a sound that felt older than the mountains themselves. Then, a new sound joined the whistling, a slow, rhythmic scrape. 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 It was coming from the pavement, getting closer to our car. My blood ran cold. It sounded like something heavy being dragged. I peered through the rain-streaked rear window. My breath caught in my throat during a brilliant flash of lightning. I saw it. It was tall, horrifyingly so, and impossibly thin. Its limbs were elongated, bent at angles that were just wrong. It was hunched over, dragging something long and dark behind it. Its skin was the color of ash, stretched tight over a skeletal frame. The lightning vanished, plunging us back into darkness, but the image was burned into my mind. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "What did you see?" Mark demanded, his voice a panicked whisper. Before I could answer, a loud thud came from the roof of the car, making us all scream. The entire car shook from the impact. Something was on top of us. The scraping sound was right above our heads now. Scrape. 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 Like long, sharp claws dragging across the metal. The whistling was deafening. Right outside the windows, a demented serenade to our terror. Drive. Mark. Drive. Sarah shrieked, tears streaming down her face. Mark fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The engine roared to life. He slammed the car into reverse, tires spinning on the wet asphalt. The thing on the roof let out a sound that wasn't a whistle, but a shriek. A sound of pure, unadulterated rage and hunger that vibrated through the very frame of the car. It was the sound of a predator whose meal was escaping. As we fishtailed out of the parking spot, I caught one last glimpse of the parking lot in the rearview mirror. Another flash of lightning lit up the scene. The creature was standing where our car had been. It was impossibly tall, its head nearly touching the top of the faded sign. Its face. I can't describe its face. It was a blur of shadows and sharp angles, but I saw its mouth open in that silent, horrifying shriek. Its eyes glowed with a faint, sickly yellow light, like dying embers. And it wasn't a deer it had been dragging. It was the rusted metal pole from the rest stop sign. It had ripped it right out of the concrete. Mark floored it. We sped out of that godforsaken lot and back onto the highway, not caring about the storm anymore. The whistling faded behind us, swallowed by the roar of the engine and the sound of our own terrified sobs. We didn't stop driving until the sun came up and we were hundreds of miles away. We never talked about what happened. How could we? How do you explain seeing something that shouldn't exist? How do you explain the sound of that whistle? We went online searching for local legends, anything that could explain it, and I found the stories. Stories whispered by the old-timers about the Rocky Mountains. Stories of a spirit born of starvation and winter, an eternal hunger on the wind. They called it the Wendigo. I know what we saw that night. It wasn't a trick of the light or the wind. It was ancient, and it was hungry. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to my very soul, that it's still out there, in the high, lonely places of the world, whistling its awful tune in the storm, just waiting for the next lost travelers to pull over. We were lucky. We got away. But I'll never forget the feeling of those claws on the roof, or the sight of those glowing yellow eyes. In the dark, I got up to use the restroom at my girlfriend's place and felt like someone was sitting on the couch in the living room. My girlfriend Chloe had this old, sprawling house, inherited from her grandparents. It was the kind of place that groaned and settled at night, with floorboards that whispered secrets from decades past. I'd stayed over a dozen times, but this night felt different. The air was heavy, charged with an unspoken tension. It was just after 3 a.m. when I woke up. The moonlight cut a sharp, silver line across the bedroom floor. Chloe was sleeping soundly beside me, her breathing a soft, rhythmic comfort in the otherwise deafening silence. I slipped out of bed as quietly as I could, my feet cold against the polished wood. The bathroom was just down the hall, past the living room. As I crept out of the bedroom, a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature snaked up my spine. The hallway was a tunnel of shadows, and the familiar shapes of furniture seemed alien and distorted in the dark. The door to the living room was ajar, spilling a sliver of pale moonlight into the hall. That's when I felt it, a palpable sense of being watched. My heart started a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. I paused, every muscle tensing. My gaze was drawn to the living room. Through the gap in the door, I could just make out the silhouette of the large, overstuffed couch, and sitting on it, still as a statue, was a figure. It was too dark to see any details, just a hulking shape hunched over, darker than the surrounding shadows. It wasn't Chloe's dad. He was out of town. It wasn't her. She was still in bed. A knot of ice formed in my stomach. Who was in the house? My mind raced. A burglar, but nothing seemed disturbed. The front door was locked. I checked it myself. The figure didn't move. It just sat there, emanating a predatory stillness. I told myself it was just a trick of the light, my sleep-addled brain playing games. Maybe it was a pile of blankets Chloe had left on the couch. It took a slow, deliberate step forward, peering harder into the gloom. The shape was wrong. The proportions were off. It seemed too tall, even sitting down, with unnaturally long limbs folded awkwardly. The head was tilted at an angle that looked painful, almost impossible. I held my breath, listening. The only sound was the frantic thumping of my own heart and the old house creaking around me. I should have backed away, gone back to the bedroom, and woken Chloe. But a morbid, terrifying curiosity held me captive. I took another step, my hand brushing against the cool plaster of the wall. The floorboard under my foot let out a long, agonizing groan. The figure's head snapped up. It turned towards the sound, towards me, with a speed that was utterly inhuman. I couldn't see a face, just the shifting of the silhouette, but I felt its gaze lock onto me. The feeling of being watched intensified 100-fold, becoming a physical pressure, a suffocating weight that made it hard to breathe. Panic finally broke through my paralysis. I stumbled back, my mind screaming, every instinct telling me to run. I didn't turn my back on it. I couldn't. I just kept backing away, my eyes glued to the dark shape on the couch. It began to stand. The movement was grotesque, jerky, and unnatural. It unfolded itself from the couch, not like a person, but like an insect unfurling its legs. It was impossibly tall, its head nearly scraping the ceiling. The moonlight caught it for a second, and my blood ran cold. Its limbs were too long, its joints bent at the wrong angles. It was thin, emaciated, but it filled the room with a sense of immense, ancient power. And then I heard it, a faint, wet, clicking sound, like bones grating together, or a tongue lolling in a dry mouth. It was a sound that didn't belong in this house, in T's world. I finally found my voice, a strangled gasp escaping my lips. I scrambled backward, tripping over my own feet and crashing against the bedroom door. I fumbled for the knob, my hands slick with sweat, my eyes never leaving the horrifying silhouette that now stood in the center of the living room, watching me. I burst into the bedroom, slamming the door shut and fumbling with the old-fashioned lock. The click of the bolt sliding into place was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I threw my back against the door, my whole body trembling. "What is it? What's wrong?" Chloe's voice was thick with sleep. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. "There's someone in the house," I hissed, my voice cracking, "in the living room." She was awake now, her eyes wide in the dim light. "What? Who?" "I don't know," I stammered. It's not a person." She looked at me, confusion and fear warring on her face. Then, from the other side of the door, we heard a sound, a soft, scratching noise, like fingernails dragging slowly down the wood. We bought Frucy, our breath catching in our throats. The scratching continued, slow and methodical. Scrop. Scrop. It moved down the door, then back up. It was testing it, exploring it. Then, a new sound. A voice. It was Chloe's voice. "Honey, what's wrong? Why did you lock the door?" It called out, the tone light and concern. I looked at Chloe, who was sitting bolt upright in bed, her face a mask of pure terror. Her hand was clamped over her mouth to stifle a scream. She was right here. The voice on the other side of the door was a perfect imitation. The same pitch, the same inflection, but there was something hollow about it. Something dead. It was a recording played by something that didn't understand the meaning of the words. "Let me in, baby," the voice cooed. "It's cold out here." The scratching stopped. It was replaced by a soft, rhythmic thudding against the bottom of the door. Thud, thud, thud. Like something was gently bumping its head against it. "I know you're in there," the voice whispered. And this time it was my voice. A flawless mimicry, a cold dread, colder and deeper than anything I'd ever felt, washed over me. It knew my voice. It had heard me gasp. Chloe started to cry silently, tears streaming down her face. I put a finger to my lips, signaling her to be quiet, though I knew it was useless. It knew we were here. The thudding stopped. Thudding stopped for a long moment. There was only silence. The kind of silence that precedes a storm. We waited, barely breathing, our ears straining for any sound. Then we heard it, a faint, scratching sound, but it wasn't coming from the door anymore. It was coming from the window. I turned my head slowly, my heart sinking into a bottomless pit. The window was on the second floor. There was no balcony, no fire escape, just a sheer drop to the backyard below. A long, pale finger, tipped with a dirty, broken nail, hooked over the window sash. Then another, and another. A hand, skeletal and gray, pulled itself into view. It was followed by a gaunt arm, stretching and contorting as it hauled a dark shape up the side of the house. It was the thing from the living room. Its face was pressed against the glass, and in the moonlight, I finally saw it. Its features were a distorted, horrifying parody of a human face. The eyes were too large, too dark, just black, wet pits. The mouth was a lipless slit that stretched too wide, pulled into a grotesque, knowing smile. It didn't try to break the glass. It just stayed there, its awful face pressed against the pane, its dead eyes staring right at me. And its smile widened. Then it started to talk, its voice a low, rasping chorus of all the sounds it had heard. It was Chloe's voice, my voice, the creak of the floorboards, the groan of the house, all woven together into a nightmarish symphony. It was telling me things. It whispered my name. It described the way Chloe was trembling in the bed. It knew. We stayed like that, frozen in terror, until the first hint of dawn began to lighten the sky. As the gray light of morning crept over the horizon, the thing at the window seemed to recoil. Its smile faltered. With one last lingering look, it unhooked its fingers and slid back down the wall, disappearing into the shadows below. We didn't move until the sun was fully up, flooding the room with light. We never spoke about what we would do. We just knew. We packed a bag in frantic silence, got in my car, and drove. We didn't look back. Chloe left her ancestral home, her inheritance, everything, behind. I still have nightmares. I see that face pressed against the glass, that impossible smile. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I'll hear it, a faint scratching at the window, and a whisper in a voice I know all too well. It's a reminder that some things, once they see you, never stop looking. Thanks for watching. If you have a story you want to share, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more. The Northern Lights. They're a spectacle, right? A celestial ballet of greens and purples dancing across the Arctic sky. For me, Elias, a photographer obsessed with the aurora, it was more than a spectacle. It was a calling. I'd spent weeks in a remote cabin deep in the Alaskan wilderness, waiting for the perfect solar storm, the kind of storm that makes the sky explode with color. One night, it happened. The forecast promised a G5 geomagnetic storm, the strongest kind. The air crackled with energy, and the sky began to shimmer with an intensity I'd never seen before. I set up my gear on a frozen lake, the ice groaning under my boots. The aurora was breathtaking, a curtain of light so vivid it felt tangible. I was clicking away, lost in the moment, when I reviewed a long exposure shot on my camera's small screen, and that's when I saw it. Amidst the swirling greens, there was a silhouette, tall, unnaturally thin, with limbs that seemed too long for its body. It was just a dark shape against the light, almost like a trick of the eye, a shadow cast by a non-existent tree. I dismissed it as a photographic anomaly, a lens flare, or maybe just my sleep-deprived mind playing tricks on me. I packed up, feeling a strange, unshakable chill that had nothing to do with the freezing air. The next night, the aurora returned. Not as strong, but still beautiful. I went back to the same spot, half hoping to debunk my own foolish fear. I set up my camera, my heart pounding a little faster than usual. As the lights began their dance, I took another series of long exposure shots. I checked the screen, my breath catching in my throat. The figure was there again, but this time, it was closer. It was no longer a vague silhouette in the distance. I could make out more detail. The impossibly long arms, the gaunt frame, It was standing at the edge of the woods, just beyond the frozen lake. It was as if it had stepped out of the aurora and into my world. Panic started to bubble up inside me. This wasn't a lens flare. This was something real. I quickly packed my equipment, my hands fumbling with the frozen claps. I didn't look back towards the woods. I just ran, the crunch of my boots on the snow sounding like thunder in the dead silence of the night. Back in the cabin, I locked the door, my mind racing. What had I seen? I spent the rest of the night huddled by the fire, jumping at every creak of the old wooden cabin, every howl of the wind. The following days were a torment of indecision. Part of me screamed to pack my bags and leave this cursed place. But the photographer in me, the part that chased beauty and mystery, was captivated. I had to know what it was. I spent the day researching local folklore on my spotty satellite internet. The stories I found were unsettling. Tales of an ancient spirit, a creature born of hunger and cold, that stalked the northern forests. They called it the Wendigo. The legends said it could mimic sounds, move with impossible speed, and that its presence was a harbinger of famine and despair. The descriptions matched the gaunt, elongated figure from my photos with terrifying accuracy. That night, the aurora was predicted to be even more powerful. A mix of terror and morbid curiosity pulled me back to the lake. This time, I didn't go alone. I brought my high-powered telephoto lens and a heavy-duty flashlight. I told myself it was for a better picture, but I knew it was for a sense of security. I set up my tripod further back, closer to the relative safety of the tree line. The sky lit up, and the world was bathed in an eerie green glow. I scanned the edge of the woods where I'd seen it last. Nothing. A wave of relief washed over me. Maybe it was gone. I turned my lens back to the sky, capturing the celestial show. After about an hour, I decided to review my shots. As I scrolled through the images, my blood ran cold. In the first few photos, the shoreline was empty. But then, in the subsequent shots, taken only minutes apart, the figure appeared. It wasn't at the edge of the woods anymore. It was on the ice, halfway across the lake. Each photo showed it closer, its form more defined. It wasn't walking. It was just there, appearing nearer in each frame, as if it was teleporting across the frozen expanse. Its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, and even from that distance, I could feel its gaze locked onto me. That was Italiano. Primera hua es done. I grabbed my camera and tripod and sprinted back to the cabin without a second thought. I didn't even bother packing my other equipment. I threw my essentials into my truck, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key in the ignition. As the engine roared to life, my headlights cut through the darkness, sweeping across the path, leading away from the cabin. For a split second, the beams illuminated a figure standing at the edge of the road, just beyond the reach of the cabin's light. It was tall, skeletal, with skin the color of ash. Its eyes seemed to glow with a faint, malevolent light of their own. It just stood there, watching me. I slammed my foot on the gas, the truck skidding on the icy road as I sped away. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. Primera corriente. I drove for hours, not stopping until the sun came up and the familiar signs of civilization began to appear. I never went back for the rest of my gear. It can stay there, a tribute to the thing on the ice. I still have the photos. Sometimes, late at night, I pull them up on my computer. I zoom in on the figure, trying to make sense of what I saw. Each time, I notice something new, something more terrifying. The way its limbs seem to bend at impossible angles. The hint of something that looks like antlers sprouting from its head. But the worst part is the final picture, the one I took right before I ran. When I zoom in on the face, on the dark, empty sockets where eyes should be, I can almost see my own reflection. They say the Wendigo is a spirit of insatiable hunger. I used to think that meant a hunger for flesh, but now I know better. It's a hunger for warmth, for life, for the very soul. It's all my obsession, my hunger to capture the perfect light, and it recognized a kindred spirit. The aurora wasn't just a beautiful backdrop. The legends say the lights are spirits of the dead. I believe it now. The aurora was a warning. It was showing me what was coming for me, what was stepping out of the light and into the dark. I escaped, but a part of me feels like it's still out there, on that frozen lake, waiting. And some nights, when the sky shimmers with a faint green glow, I can feel its cold, hungry gaze, even from 1,000 miles away. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to follow for more stories. Stay safe out there. I've been a plumber for 15 years, and I've seen some strange things on job sites, especially new constructions out in the middle of nowhere. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what happened last fall. The job was a custom home build, deep in the woods of northern Arizona, miles from the nearest town. It was just me, the framing crew, and a whole lot of quiet. The day it started was a Tuesday. I was working late, trying to finish the rough in for the master bathroom. The sun had already dipped below the jagged peaks of the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The framing crew had packed up hours ago. It was just me. The hum of my generator, and the vast, unsettling silence of the wilderness. I was cutting a piece of copper pipe when I felt it. That prickly sensation on the back of your neck, the one that tells you you're being watched. I straightened up, my pipe cutter still in hand, and scanned the half-finished structure. The house was just a skeleton of wood and studs, open to the elements. Shadows were stretching long and thin, playing tricks on my eyes. I saw nothing. Probably just a deer, I muttered to myself, trying to shake off the unease. I went back to my work, the sound of my tools echoing unnaturally loud in the twilight. But the feeling wouldn't go away. It was a heavy, persistent stare that made my skin crawl. I decided to call it a night. As I gathered my tools, I glanced up towards the second-floor framing, where the master bedroom would be. And that's when I saw it. Standing perfectly still in the open frame of a window, silhouetted against the last sliver of daylight, was a figure. It was tall, unnaturally so, and gaunt. It wasn't a person. The proportions were all wrong. Its limbs were too long, its shoulders too broad, and its head seemed to sit at an odd angle on its neck. It was just standing there, motionless, staring down at me. My heart hammered against my ribs. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It made no sound, no movement, just that intense, unwavering gaze. The rational part of my brain screamed that it was a trick of the light, a shadow, my imagination running wild after a long day. But the primal, instinctual part of me knew what I was looking at wasn't natural. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I managed to switch on the flashlight and aimed the beam up at the window frame. It was gone. The space was empty. There was nothing there but the wooden studs and the darkening sky. Beyond, my breath came out in a ragged gasp. I told myself I was losing it. I quickly threw the rest of my tools into my truck, not even bothering to organize them. I just wanted out of there. As I drove away, bumping down the long dirt driveway, I couldn't shake the image from my mind. The tall, wrong-looking figure, just staring. The next day, I almost didn't go back. But deadlines are deadlines, and I had a mortgage to pay. I arrived early, while the sun was bright and the framing crew was already making a racket with their nail guns and saws. The daylight made my fears feel foolish. It was a construction site. Of course, there were strange shadows and noises. I got to work trying to focus on the job, pushing the memory of the previous night to the back of my mind. For a few hours, it worked. The noise and activity of the other workers were a comforting buffer. But as the day wore on and the crew started packing up, that old familiar dread began to creep back in. I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, scanning the tree line, checking the upper floors. Every flicker of movement, every snap of a twig, sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I was determined to finish the upstairs plumbing that day, so I wouldn't have to stay late again. I was in what would be a small guest bedroom, fitting a valve, when I heard something. It wasn't a normal construction sound. It was a faint scratching, coming from the far side of the house, from the area of the master bedroom. I froze, listening. Scratch. Scrape. It sounded like long nails dragging slowly across raw plywood. "Hello," I called out, my voice sounding weak. "Is anyone there?" The scratching stopped. Silence. I held my breath, straining to hear anything. Then, a low, guttural sound, like a large animal clearing its throat, echoed through the empty frame of the house. It was a sound that didn't belong to any animal I knew. That was it for me. I dropped my wrench with a clatter, scrambled down the makeshift stairs, and practically sprinted to my truck. I didn't look back. I called the site foreman the next morning. I made up an excuse, something about a family emergency, and told him I couldn't work on that site anymore. He was annoyed, but I didn't care. I offered to recommend another plumber. I just knew I was never setting foot on that property again. He grumbled, but eventually agreed. About a week later, I got a call from the plumber who took over the job, a guy named Dave. He was just calling to ask a few technical questions about the layout. We chatted for a bit, and then he said something that made the blood run cold in my veins. "Hey, weird question," he said. "Did you guys have a problem with coyotes out there? Or maybe a big dog?" I asked him why. "Well," he said, "I keep finding these weird tracks around the site. They look kinda like dog tracks, but they're huge. And sometimes it looks like they're walking on two legs." My throat went dry. "What do you mean, two legs?" "I don't know, man," he said, laughing nervously. "It's probably nothing. But the other day, I was working late, and I swear I saw something moving around on the second floor. Tall, really skinny, just watching me. Gave me the creeps. When I shined my light on it, it was gone." He paused. "Probably just tired. You know, this place is creepy at night." I didn't tell him my story. I didn't want him to think I was crazy. I just told him to be careful and to get out of there before dark. I hung up the phone, my hand trembling. It wasn't my imagination. It was real, and it was still there. I never heard what happened with that house build. I didn't want to know. I switched to residential service and repair after that, working in well-lit suburbs, far from the deep woods and their ancient secrets. But sometimes, when I'm working in a quiet house, alone in a basement or an attic, I'll get that same feeling, that prickly, cold sensation of being watched. And I see it, just for a second, in the dark corners of my mind. A tall, gaunt figure with limbs that are too long, standing silently in a window frame, just staring. And I know I'll never be able to unsee it. Thanks for watching. If you have your own chilling encounter you'd like to share, leave it in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying true stories. Stay safe out there. Have you ever felt a fear so deep it rewrites your mind? A dread that seeps into your bones, not from what you see, but from what you can't. Tonight, we're not just talking about strange lights or fleeting shadows. We re-delving into the most insidious horror of Skinwalker Ranch, the psychological warfare it wages on those who dare to stay too long. Our story begins with a team of 4 seasoned paranormal investigators. Let's call their lead investigator Alex. He was a skeptic, a man who built his career on debunking hoaxes. With him were Maya, a sensitive with a knack for picking up emotional residue. Ben, the tech guru, armed with every sensor imaginable. And Liam, the group's historian and documentarian. They arrived at the ranch on a crisp autumn afternoon, the sky a brilliant, cloudless blue. The air was still, silent, almost too silent. Their first few days were uneventful. Ben's equipment registered some odd magnetic fluctuations around Homestead 2, but nothing conclusive. Maya felt a persistent hum of anxiety in the air, like the static before a storm, but she couldn't pinpoint its source. Alex, ever the pragmatist, was growing impatient, chalking it up to suggestion and the ranch's reputation. "It's just a place," he'd say, tapping his pen against his notepad. "A place with a lot of stories." The shift began on the 5th night. It wasn't a sudden event. It was a slow, creeping rot. It started with Ben. He became obsessed with a low-frequency hum his parabolic microphone was picking up, a sound no one else could hear. He'd sit for hours, headphones clamped on, face pale, muttering about patterns in the static. He stopped eating. He barely slept. He claimed the sound was talking to him, not in words, but in feelings. It was showing him things, moments of deep, personal failure and regret. replayed on a loop in his mind's eye. Then came Liam. The historian, the man of facts and figures, began having crippling panic attacks. They'd come out of nowhere. One minute he'd be cataloging their findings, the next he'd be on the floor, gasping for air, his eyes wide with a terror he couldn't name. He described a feeling of being watched, not by a person, but by the land itself. He felt as if the rocks, the dry soil, the very air, held a malevolent intelligence that was judging him, peeling back the layers of his sanity one by one. He started seeing movements at the edge of his vision distortions, like heat haze that would twist into vaguely humanoid shapes before vanishing when he turned to look. Maya, the sensitive, was arguably the worst off. The ambient anxiety she'd felt had intensified into a crushing wave of despair. She'd burst into tears without reason, overwhelmed by a grief that wasn't hers. She said the ranch was a repository of pain, a place that fed on negative emotions. At night, she dreamed of whispers in a language she didn't understand, the voices ancient and guttural. She'd wake up, convinced something had been in the room with her, a cold presence that left the scent of ozone and dry earth in its wake. She started drawing the same symbol over and over in her notebook, a twisted, spiral-like shape with 3 points. She didn't know why. Alex tried to hold it all together. He was their leader, the rock. But even the rock was beginning to crack. He didn't hear voices or see shadows. His affliction was more subtle, more poisonous. Paranoia began to take root in his mind. He started to doubt his team. He'd review Ben's audio logs, convinced his tech expert was fabricating the hum. He'd watch Liam during his panic attacks with a cold, analytical detachment, wondering if he was faking it for attention. He became suspicious of Maya, believing her emotional episodes were a ploy to derail the investigation. The man who came to debunk the ranch was now seeing conspiracies in the faces of his closest colleagues. He'd lock himself in their RV for hours, poring over the footage, rewatching every frame, searching for some trick, some lie. The camaraderie that had defined their team for years evaporated, replaced by a tense, ugly silence. They were 4 strangers, isolated by their own private torments, trapped together in a place that seemed to be actively trying to break them apart. The turning point came on their 10th and final night. A storm rolled in, a violent, unnatural squall that wasn't on any forecast. The wind howled like a starving animal, and the rain hammered against their RV. All of their equipment went haywire simultaneously. Screens filled with static, batteries drained in an instant, and every alarm blared at once. In the chaos, Ben ripped off his headphones, his eyes wild. "It's here," he screamed over the din. "It wants us to see." At that moment, a brilliant blue light pulsed from the direction of the mesa, bathing the entire ranch in an ethereal glow. It wasn't lightning. It was silent, cold, and utterly terrifying. In that flash of blue light, Alex saw it. For just a second, standing outside the RV's window, was a figure. It was tall, impossibly thin, and seemed to be made of shifting shadows and distorted limbs. It had no face, only a void. But Alex felt its gaze, an ancient, predatory intelligence that saw right through him, into the darkest corners of his soul. In that instant, understood, the ranch wasn't just haunted, it was a predator. And its prey wasn't your body, it was your mind. The light vanished, plunging them back into darkness and the cacophony of their failing equipment. The spell was broken. Liam was sobbing, huddled in a corner. Maya was chanting softly, her eyes shut tight. Ben was rocking back and forth, unresponsive. And Alex was frozen. The image of that faceless entity burned into his brain. He finally knew the true horror of Skinwalker Ranch. It doesn't need to touch you to destroy you. It just needs you to be there. It waits, it watches, and it slowly, patiently, unravels you from the inside out. They packed up in a frenzy as soon as the storm broke at dawn, not speaking a word. They left thousands of dollars of equipment behind. They just had to get away. They drove in silence for hours, each of them forever changed, carrying a piece of the ranch's oppressive darkness with them. Months later, they tried to debrief. Ben had to be hospitalized for acute psychosis. Liam developed a severe agoraphobia and refused to leave his house. Maya quit paranormal investigation entirely, seeking solace in a quiet, secluded life still haunted by nightmares of that three-pointed spiral. And Alex the skeptic, he never published their findings. He couldn't. How do you document a feeling? How do you provide evidence for a fear that consumes your sanity? The greatest trick the entity of Skinwalker Ranch ever pulled wasn't appearing in a photograph. It was convincing the world, and even its most ardent investigators, that maybe, just maybe, it was all in their heads. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this dive into the psychological terror of the ranch, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more unsettling tales. Stay safe out there, and never underestimate the power of a place that feels wrong. Wrong. The sandstorms in Afghanistan were bad enough, but what we encountered near Kandahar was something else entirely. I was a Marine, stationed at a small forward operating base, or FOB, a few years back. Our outpost was just a handful of tents and barriers in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by miles of desolate, rocky terrain. It was kit to quiet most nights, but then it started. It began as a faint sound, just on the edge of hearing, a rhythmic, dragging scrape that would circle our perimeter, always just beyond the reach of our floodlights. At first, we dismissed it. The wind plays tricks out there, and your mind can fill in the blanks, especially when you're on edge for months. We'd joke about it, calling it the FOB ghost, but the jokes stopped when the sound got clearer. It wasn't just a scrape. It was a heavy, loping gait, something big, walking on two legs, but dragging something behind it. One night a guy on watch, PFC Miller, swore he saw it. A tall, gaunt figure, impossibly thin, moving with a jerky, unnatural motion at the very edge of the darkness. He said its silhouette was all wrong for a person, too long in the limbs, too sharp in the angles. We started doubling up on watch. The feeling in the camp shifted from unease to genuine fear. The sound became a nightly ritual. It would start around 0200, circle the fob for an hour, and then fade away. We never saw tracks. The ground was hard and rocky, but something that size should have left some sign, some disturbed pebbles, anything. But there was nothing. It was like a phantom. The local interpreters we worked with grew withdrawn when we mentioned it. They'd exchange nervous glances and mutter words in Pashto, refusing to translate. One of them, an old man named Tariq, finally pulled our sergeant aside. He told him we were dealing with something ancient, something that wore the skins of others. He said it was drawn to places of conflict and sorrow. He warned us never to call out to it, never to engage. That's when things escalated. The scraping sound was joined by a new noise, a voice. It wasn't a human voice though, it was a mimicry, a distorted echo. It would call out, using the voices of our own squad members. One night, I was on watch with my buddy, Dave. We heard my name, clear as day, called from the darkness. "Hey Mike, over here." It sounded exactly like our sergeant. My blood ran cold. Dave grabbed my arm, his eyes wide. "Don't you dare," he whispered. The real sergeant was asleep in his tent. The voice called out again, this time with a hint of laughter. A chilling, guttural sound that scraped at your soul. The psychological toll was immense. Sleep became a luxury none of us could afford. Every shadow seemed to move. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. The creature grew bolder. It started to imitate other sounds. The cry of a woman in distress, the whimper of a dog, sounds that had no place in the middle of a war zone. It was testing us, trying to lure us out past the wire. We knew it was a trap. We reported it up the chain of command. But what could we say? That a monster was circling our base every night. They'd have sent a psych team, not reinforcements. One night, the creature broke its pattern. The scraping stopped right at the main gate. Silence. The kind of absolute, deafening silence that makes the hair on your neck stand up. We had our rifles trained on the entrance, hearts pounding in our chests. Then, we heard a soft tapping on the metal gate. Tap, tap, tap. It was slow, deliberate. It sounded like a finger bone, rapping gently. Miller, who was near the gate and a guard post, completely lost it. He started screaming for it to show itself, to stop hiding. The tapping stopped. A low growl rumbled from the other side, a sound that vibrated through the ground. It wasn't an animal growl. It was deeper, more intelligent, filled with ancient malice. Suddenly, a massive shape rose above the gate. It was only for a second, a dark silhouette against the moonless sky, but it was burned into my memory forever. It was tall, hunched over, with long, spindly limbs, and a head that was vaguely human, but horrifically elongated. Its eyes, for the brief moment I saw them, seemed to glow with a faint, predatory light. Then it was gone. The scraping sound started up again, but this time it was moving away, fading back into the desert from which it came. Miller was catatonic. They had to medevac him the next day. He never spoke another word about what happened. The next few weeks were quiet. The creature didn't return. We started to think, to hope, that it was gone for good. Maybe Miller's outburst had scared it off, but the relief was short. A patrol from another FOB, about 10 clicks north of us, went missing. They found their vehicle abandoned, doors wide open, with no signs of a struggle. The official report said they were ambushed, but the rumors told a different story. The rescue team found strange tracks leading away from the vehicle, tracks that were almost human, but not quite. They said the tracks just stopped in the middle of an open patch of sand. We were rotated out a month later. I never went back to that part of the country. I tried to put it all behind me, to convince myself it was just stress, a shared delusion brought on by the horrors of war. But sometimes, on nights when it's too quiet, I can still hear it. That rhythmic scraping sound. And I remember the old interpreter's warning that these things are drawn to sorrow. It makes me wonder what it was dragging, and it makes me wonder what skin it was wearing that night, and whose skin it might be wearing now. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay safe out there.